This episode of the Haunted Road Trip Show is brought to you by evidential medium Tracy St. Croix. Are you ready to find solution, acceptance, and closure for the traumas and hurts you experience in this world? Visit www.tracystcroixmedium.com and discover how an Arthur Findlay College of Psychic Sciences trained evidential medium can provide life-changing experiences by connecting deceased loved ones with friends and family to achieve peace and closure. Welcome to the Haunted Road Trip Show, where we bring you powerful conversations, insights, and exciting site investigations that reveal the paranormal world in a way you've never seen before, up until now. Tune in and become part of a community that enjoys the thrill of finding out what the paranormal world wants to teach you and solve the issues. Be sure to visit our website at www.hauntedroadtripsshow.com. And while you're there, subscribe to us via your favorite network. Now, prepare to have your thirst for curiosity satisfied as you enjoy ghost stories, haunted house stories, and more.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to this edition of Haunted Road Trip Show. I am your grateful host, Tracy St. Croix. And for this episode, I have somebody who invented special. I'm just convinced of it.
Oh.
I had the wonderful synchronistic opportunity of meeting this wonderful being at the Arthur Findlay College of Psychic Sciences a few years ago. And let me just tell you what, he is one of the most precious human beings. He is a wonderful psychic medium. He is a full-time, teacher of all things metaphysics and intuitive. He lives in the beautiful city of Asheville, North Carolina. And I am so proud to be able to know him. Anthony, welcome to the show.
Hello, welcome. Thank you so much for having me.
All right, and you're going to pronounce your name because I might butcher it. Your last name, it's very Greek.
No, it's Polish.
Okay, it's very Polish.
But it's Greek to a lot of people. That's a good way of putting it. It's 100% Polish.
Oh, God. Oh, well, pronounce your name so everybody will know it.
It's Anthony Miklojeski. But it's easier to go by the Asheville medium because that's what I go by. And it's much easier to remember my name that way.
Oh, yes. It definitely is on there. Well, I am absolutely thrilled to have him on the show, you guys. I was so excited when he accepted the invite because I just said the world needs to know about Anthony. And if you guys want ghost stories, because that might be why you come to this show a lot, he's got oodles and oodles of them that I cannot wait to hear and be able to talk about and share. But for those of you who are curious, like we said, we met at Hogwarts. We lovingly call it Hogwarts.
Yes.
Arthur Findlay College of Psychic Sciences. Do you remember what the villagers called it?
I can't remember. I can't remember. Refresh my memory on that one.
They called it Spook Hall.
Spook Hall, that's right.
Yes.
That's right. Because Arthur Findlay College, just for those people who are listening, it's in Stansted, England, and it's the place to study for metaphysics, science, and mediumship. And anyhow, it used to be a residence of Arthur Findlay, and he donated it to psychic science. And so we met there, and we had a great time. And we just connected in a really odd way. Remember how we met? We met through someone that you were sort of connected with there at Arthur Findlay College as a student there. And indirectly, we just kind of met. And it was my roommate that she was kind of seeing, right? And it was just strange how we met, but we just connected, right? We just had a great time.
Oh yeah. That place, that place is known for connecting people, and it is very haunted for all of those who are wanting to know. It is very active paranormally.
Yes,
And do you remember we all had the same paranormal experience? Do you remember that?
I do. Yes. I was sleeping the first night, and while trying to sleep, it was very hot and unusually warm that year. And I I felt, someone touch me in the middle of the night, and they caressed my back. It was really weird. And I woke up and I was so freaked out by it. And I looked around, and of course, I was rooming with somebody, but he was way over there. I was like, okay, I know it's a spirit. And I just said to him, and I kind of whispered to the spirit, I said, okay, that's enough. Do not do that. I'm trying to sleep here.
Yes. No, do you remember the door thing? Remember that a few nights later, the doors?
I don't remember that. Refresh my memory.
I remember we were all about to go to bed, and I went up to my room, and Arthur Findlay has these very older locks on the doors. So
Yes.
when somebody is coming in the door, it is noticeable. Like you can hear the hand on the doorknob turning, you can hear the skeleton key going into the door. Like there's no sneaking about in that place. And I remember I was in my room and I was sitting on the bed, and the door was behind kind of like a little corner, so I couldn't see the door, but I heard the door starting to unlock and open. And I thought, that's weird because I'm not rooming with anybody. And I said, hello? And I just remember feeling like somebody just came through the room and was just like checking on things. It was the weirdest thing. And then I remember we went
It
to
was. I remember you
the
telling me now.
okay, you remember this now. Okay, great. See, I'm not crazy. And then the next morning, during the morning, me and Anthony, we would always meet up and we would walk down this gorgeous back pathway. It was like something out of a freaking fairy tale, y'all.
With the meadow flowers, and it was gorgeous. And we'd go into Stansted Village and have a coffee at the cafe before classes started, and then come back and have breakfast. And we would just kind of engage of what we experienced, either from the night before or, just what our classes were, right?
Yeah, and remember I told you, I said, this is what happened to me last night. And what did you say?
I was like, yeah, I could hear the doors trying to open even for me as well. And I was like, wow, because these doors are like, I would say they're almost like 8 inches thick. They're solid, probably walnut doors. I mean, they're gorgeous. The place was built in the mid 1800s, maybe the late 1800s, maybe like 1880 or something. I gotta look at the date on that. I apologize, but anyhow, it was built in the 1800s, and so the architecture, it's really quite astounding. It's like a miniature Downton Abbey, to give you an idea how big it is.
And like, I remember, if you guys look up the history, but remember you said you had that happen in your room, and then you said the house next door had said something to you about the same thing. So it was
right. And the next morning I was getting ready, and I came up because I had forgotten something from my room, and there was someone locked out of her room, and she says, I can't believe, like I stuck a towel in my door, because the showers were at the end of the hall, and she went to take a shower. When she came back, the door was closed and locked. And so she was standing out there with the towel on her head and around her body. And she's like, Anthony, you've got to go down and get an extra key. So I ran down and got her one. But we laughed about that because the doors, like she said, somebody locked me out.
Yeah, there were definitely spirits there that were really, really liked to mess with the doors. And if you look into Arthur Findlay, there's I mean, this man specifically built this castle. Like there was, what was it? Something like 52 rooms and 12 smokestacks. It was something very connected with astrology. I remember that. I'll have to look up all of the direct information because I don't want to speak out of turn here. But I remember he was into like astronomy and astrology.
Yes, and then he started investigating mediums and understanding the truth behind the information that they would have known that that they did know that they wouldn't have known about his past and about his family, and that's how he started to take more interest in mediums. And through his research, he donated his home to become a college, which is quite amazing.
Yes, and it was many things. It was a war hospital. It was all kinds of, I could talk about some really cool paranormal experiences there, but I remember talking with you about all of your paranormal experiences outside of the Arthur Findlay College of Psychic Sciences as well. It seems to, you seem to be attracted to it.
I have realized that I get a lot of physical mediumship experiences, and I'm actually going to Lilydale this year to study there in the Victorian Physical Mediumship Symposium. So I'm excited about that because I've realized that I am a physical medium. I'm in the beginning stages of understanding how to work with it. And for those of you that don't understand physical mediumship, it's about the spirit world being able to create physical movement of objects or manifestation or sounds or direct voice, and they could do it with music and all kinds of things. I can't even cover all the physical mediumship, but it basically that the spirit world can actually create a physical experience for us to experience in the physical world. So
you remember, okay, we said we weren't going to talk about AFC anymore, but one more quick story because it leads into your physical mediumship. Do you remember that night, and I can't remember the names of the mediums, that they were doing a physical and trance mediumship demonstration?
Yes.
And the lightning shot across the room.
Yes, that's correct.
We were inside, everybody.
I know, it was really crazy. It was shocking, to say the least.
If I hadn't seen that with my own eyes, and literally like probably at least about like 40 other people were in the room as well. That saw
yes.
Like a good 40.
Yes.
That is an example, you guys, of how people with one kind of intention or holding space for something, how those manifestations do happen.
Right. Because it's the power of the medium working their inner power to connect with the spirit world, and then the spirit world building up that energy to create that manifestation of physical activity. It's really quite amazing when you think about it.
It was quite, that is something that will be a memory in my mind until I pass into the spirit world, because it was that like shocking. Literally.
It was very shocking.
But it was also shocking and gorgeous all at once. So that was,
it certainly was.
I was like, holy bejesus. So tell us about some of your more like creepy experiences with the paranormal. Like
sure.
You're like, what in the world?
Sure. Well, as many of you know, I haven't always been a professional medium. I worked in the hair industry for, it's been now 44 years. And I know. And so I'm a late bloomer as far as the professional medium. So most of my life was in the hair industry. And I lived in Michigan. And right now I live in North Carolina, near the Asheville area. And at the time I was living in Detroit, in the Detroit area. And as I'm working with clients, I started to realize that I was connecting with my clients and feeling as though I was hearing or envisioning and feeling what they were about to say. And so I was hearing these phrases and seeing these stories before, like maybe a minute or two before they would share with me the same story that I was seeing or I was hearing. It was so freaky. I can't begin to tell you, because I didn't know anything about mediumship. I knew some people were psychic, but I never knew what a medium was. And I never had any idea that I was going to be doing this for a living. So, it was just really, that's how it started. And it would be, like I had this experience with the phone ringing, and there was, maybe, almost say 15 or 16 different stylists, plus, other staff and manicurists and such. And the phone would ring, and it was ringing constantly because I was near the front desk. My workstation was close to the desk. And I would hear a voice tell me, that phone call is specifically for you. And they would get on the PA system and say, Anthony, now we didn't receive phone calls on a regular basis, but the phone call would be for me. And I would just be like, how the heck did I know that? Who was telling me this, And so to kind of, go forward, it started ramping up more in my 20s. Now I had childhood experiences, but we'll get more into the more, we can go back to that if we want to. But it really ramped up in my 20s. One day, it was a Friday, I went to the bank. I went to go cash my check. I was still an assistant in the salon. And, things were tight because you're an assistant, and you're just beginning in the salon and getting yourself started and getting your clients ramped up and, starting to get more clientele. And so I went over to the bank to cash my check, and it was probably about 5:15. And it was across the street, so I walked over. And I'm standing in line, and while I'm standing in line for just a few minutes, I felt all of a sudden extremely sick. It was almost as like a fever came over me. I started to, perspire profusely, and I felt as though I was going to pass out. And I start to lay across where they have all the slips for the deposit slips and stuff with the counter, the glass counter. And I had to lay there on top of it. I thought I was going to fall on the floor. I mean, it was really frightening. And I thought seriously something was wrong with me. And people came rushing to me, and there were people standing in line in front of me. And this old lady tapped me on the shoulder, and she's wearing a floral house dress, and she was real short. And I didn't really see her face. I just kind of saw her image because I was, I just felt so comfortable in that cold glass. And she said, honey, everything's going to be all right. And I said, thank you, ma'am. And so they brought me some water, and it was amazing. With as quick as it came on, it came off of me so quickly. It was almost as though something like attacked me. I don't know how to explain it. That's how I can explain it. Anyway, so I said to the man in front of me, I said, where's that little old lady that was behind me? And he said, there wasn't any old lady behind you. There wasn't a person like that. And I said, no, I saw her standing there behind me. And she spoke to me, and he says, there's no person that was standing there like that. And so I'm beginning to think, what the heck is happening to me? Did I imagine this? And so, I'm next in line to get up to the teller, and I'm just kind of, like, what is going on? And thinking in my mind, I'm not even thinking about going up to the teller. And the next thing I saw 3 men in black ski masks with guns jumping over the counter and to to hold up the bank, right? This was a vision I see.
Stop it.
I saw it as a vision, like a movie. And I kept thinking to myself, oh my God, why am I thinking such horrible thoughts? This is horrible, I just, and it freaked me out even more, because here's something that I just saw. And I mean, it played out in front of me like it was, you're watching it on TV, and it was horrible. So I'm flipping out standing there. And next I get up to the teller, and she says to me, I walk up to her and she says, well, what are we going to do today? And I says, you know what, I can't even think straight, just deposit it. And she says, you look green. That's what she says, you look green. Are you okay? And I said, no, I'm not really okay. I think you should probably have someone watch to make sure I make it across the street to, where I work. And so I came back to work and I told a few of my colleagues about it, and they said, you had a premonition. Like, they kept saying, you had a premonition. This is like so crazy. And I'm even freaking out more. Like, why am I getting this premonition? And why was this thing so horrible, right? And so I had a client to do, and I had to get myself in my head and get focused, because I can't have this all emotional stuff. And, I've got to get focused here. I got a client to do. And so I was able to do it, and I finished my client. And on my way home, I stopped at the 7-Eleven, and I knew the manager there. I picked up a soda or something. And I remember her telling me, she says, did you hear what happened over at the Comerica Bank across from where you work? And I said, no. And I remember my mouth being open, right? And she says, 3 men in black ski masks jumped the bank and held the bank up right before it closed. And of course, I dropped my soda at the 7-Eleven, and it splattered all over the place. And she said to me, you look green. That's what she said to me. And I had to tell her my story. And at the time, I kept thinking, like, why was these kind of things happening? That was just so shocking to experience, especially like in 1982. We just didn't have programs about mediumship or experiences or any kind of
unsolved mysteries.
No, we really didn't. So
done it.
Yeah, it was just a different world then, right? So that was one experience that changed my whole world after that, because it only ramped up after that.
Who do you think the older woman was? Like, looking
I think it was my grandmother. I think it was my grandmother from my dad's side. Yes, because I put the 2 and 2 together now, but at the time I just, and I didn't know her that well. I'd met her when I was like 5, and she passed away shortly after that. She lived with us for a while, and I think it was her, just telling me that things are going to be perfectly fine. Because I see pictures of her, and she always wears floral dresses, and they're like those house dresses that little Polish or, cultural ladies wear from, she's very European. Mm-hmm. But moving forward, I ended up, lived in the suburbs. It's later in the 80s, and I decided that I wanted to buy my own home and stop living the apartment life and possibly have my own business in like 3 years. That was my goal, right?
Right.
So, I sold my expensive car. I left the expensive apartment that I loved, and I moved to inner city in Hamtramck, which is a city surrounded by Detroit, and it's a Polish area. It's changed now with different ethnicities recently, but at the time it was very, very Polish. And of course, I knew my parents at one time lived in that area. So I started looking for apartments, and at the time we had to look at the paper. We didn't have the phone or the internet back then.
No Craigslist.
So Yeah, and I had a few artist friends that lived down there, and they're like, Anthony, the rent is so inexpensive. You'll be able to save a lot of money. You can get a roommate. It's safe. You got to go down there. It's wonderful. I mean, you'll have the drive to work, but you'll be able to go into downtown and go to the restaurants in Greek town and,
Right.
Mexican town, do all the fun things. So I started looking, and I must have looked at probably 10 different apartments. And, I went there to interview, the landlords, because I wanted to see how clean it was, if it was a safe street and it was kept up nice and yada, yada. So I find this apartment, and there's this Greek and German woman and they're elderly, and they're the landlords, and they live down in the lower half of the building. And, the apartment was up above. And the housing there, Tracy, is very similar to Brooklyn, where they have the upper and the lower, and there's a porch above, and then there's a back entrance and to get to the
I'm
yeah,
familiar.
very
Yeah.
similar to
Brownstones.
Brooklyn. Yes, just like that. So I found it. I found the place. It was spectacular. It was spotless, quiet. The landlords are downstairs. They're elderly and quiet. That's exactly what I wanted. So after living there for about I would say 2 months, I started experiencing what some people would say raps, but this was actually a clap. And it was one solid clap, like if you were to do that, right?
Right.
That loud. And the first time it happened, I remember I came home. I had plans to go to a party. It was on a Saturday night. Come home. I just had enough time to shower and change clothes. And I remember having one leg in my pants, and I heard that noise in my apartment. And I thought to myself, what the heck is that?
Right.
I mean, I jumped about 2 feet because it was really loud. And I knew it came inside the apartment. So I quickly get dressed, finished getting dressed, and I looked through the closets. I'm looking in the rooms. I had, I think, 3 bedrooms at the time. And so I'm looking through all the rooms. There's nothing. There's nothing that would indicate someone else is in the apartment. And that was a relief. So I just kind of I don't even know what the heck this is. And so I went on with my evening. And anyhow, those claps kept increasing. And I went through 2 roommates because they were so freaked out by it. They had to leave. They're like, I can't take it anymore. It's too frightening for me, right? Yeah. And I could tell you it increased with more physical activity. I had a friend of mine, her name is Anne. She comes over, she comes to visit. We're going out for breakfast. And we're sitting in my living room, we're talking, and I have the sofa with these sheer drapes behind me. Now there's a window there, a full-size window, but you can't open it. And the door that leads to the porch is open. It's in the late spring, early summer, so we had the front door open, screen doors there. And she's sitting there, and we're talking, and all of a sudden, the drapes blew beyond the sofa all around her, and basically covered her in these blinds. And her eyes were like this big around. And I know my eyes were really big too. I just looked at her, and she just sat there. She was frozen, right? And it almost like it engulfed her, like they swarmed around her. And then they came out like this, and then just draped in front, and that was it. And she says, oh my gosh, what was that? And he says, I don't know. I have no idea. I says, oh my God, I'm so freaked out. I can't even move. She goes, I'm shaking. And so we thought, she says, was it the wind? Was it a gust of wind? And so, we looked at the front door, and there was a big maple tree in front of the house. There wasn't a leaf moving. There was no wind. There was not even a quiver of a leaf. No breeze, no nothing. And so that was another experience. Another time I came home, and this is where it starts escalating. Okay. I'm sorry. Flashback just a second.
Right.
It was a Saturday, and it had snowed the night before, a couple inches of snow, and I set my alarm early. Well, I woke up and the alarm did not go off, and I'm in a panic, the world's fastest shower, and my hair was long at the time, and we needed all this spray and goop for our hair in the 80s. And, I was, it was just, you know what I mean? It was just like, oh my God, I can't believe this is happening. And so you're running around like trying to get your clothes together. And then, I don't have a garage. I have to go outside and sweep off the snow and turn on the car and let it heat up. And in the meantime, I'm soaking wet from my shower, and I'm drying my hair at the time. And one of these loud claps happens again, really loud, right? Right? And I peek around the corner from the bathroom, and I said, I don't have time for this. I'm speaking to the spirit at this time, right? I'm like, I don't have time for this. This is crap, right? And I had this picture above my stove. It came crashing down on my stove. And it's one of those old stoves with, it had the holes in there with a gas stove. But all that glass went inside the stove, all over the floor. The picture was ruined. It wasn't an expensive picture by any means. But anyhow, the glass was...
Did you start yelling at the ghost?
I was just so freaked out because I felt like, I'll show you, he was like, I'll show you.
I was thinking, I was like, that a big, like, oh, you want to see something.
So I get in the car and I drive to work, and all I could be thinking about is what I just experienced, right? And I hit a patch of ice on the freeway, and my car spins around like 3 times, and I have a semi behind me. Okay, so I'm seeing the lights of the semi behind me, 2 cars behind me, 2 car lengths. And every time I'm spinning around, I kept thinking I was on the tilt-a-whirl, and I'm getting this vision of the semi and all these cars behind me. And I'm laughing now. I'm laughing now, but at the time it was horrific. And
it's terrifying.
Oh, I was going, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God, right? And I heard a voice say to me, indirect voice said to me in the car, just sit back and take your foot off the accelerator and just let go of the wheel. And I was like, I'm not doing that. I'm not taking my hands off the wheel. And finally, when I did, the car straightened out, and the semi was, thank God, was going slow enough behind me, but I was gradually to accelerate, and I took control of the car. In the meantime, my hands were like shaking on the steering wheel. And of course, I get to work and experience, share this with a few of my colleagues, and they're like, you have to get out of this place. This place is, I don't know how you can stay there. So anyhow, moving forward, I get home from a long work night, and
is this the same day or a different night?
Yeah, same day.
It's
a Saturday, and it's in the winter time, and of course it's dark by the time I get home. And I kind of forgot about the glass, and the whole incident. And I'm walking up the back way, and I open the door, and I see that the picture's still on the stove. So I'm listening to my answering machine, because back then we had answering machines, listening for messages. And I look at the stove, and there's no glass anywhere to be found. No glass. I lift up the picture. There's no glass in the frame, whatever was left of it. There's no glass in the stove. I lift up the stove to see,
Right.
And I'm on the floor looking to see if there's glass, and there's nothing there. And I open up the trash pail, and there's all this glass has been put in there meticulously in the trash bin, right? Now I get on the floor, and I want to make sure, because there's crevices, and I wipe my hand on the floor, and there wasn't a sliver of glass to be found on the floor. It was just the most insane thing. I was so freaking out, you have no idea.
Okay, I'm still like, okay, you, like, that is a movie script.
So
Look,
this,
you move in somewhere, and then one day, like,
well,
glass starts coming down.
It gets better. Hang on, it gets better.
Oh, there's
So yeah, there's more. Yeah. So I had stopped and picked up a movie thinking that I would watch it for the weekend. And I thought, well, I'm going to watch it tonight, you know?
This was back when we had to go to Blockbuster. Yeah.
Yes, it's where I stopped before I came home. Right. So, you know, and I had some microwave popcorn and I thought, you know, I'm just going to sit and chill and watch a movie. And anyhow, I had to try to get my head around.
After a day like that.
Right.
That's
so,
like I'd be like, holy shit.
Well, I had that planned. And before I did that, I thought, well, my landlords must have come upstairs. They must have heard the crash, came upstairs and cleaned it for me. I'm thinking logically because at the time I was a very analytical person. And so I go downstairs and I knock on their door. Now it's, you know, it's late and dark and I'm, you know, they're elderly and they're probably wondering who the heck's knocking on the door. And they turn on the light and they let me in and her name was Olga, believe it or not. And so Olga says to me, well, come on in. And I explained to her, you know, you must have gone upstairs. I just wanted to thank you all for sweeping the glass. And she's just looking at me like she has no idea what I'm talking about. She's deer in the headlights, right?
Right.
And she, you know, summons her husband, Sam. She's like, Sam, you know, come here. And so she asked him, she says, did you go upstairs and clean, you know, in Anthony's kitchen? And he says, no, I've not been in your apartment. And I says, you guys didn't hear the crash this morning? I mean, it was so loud, you cannot believe.
Right.
And those old buildings, I can hear them muffling, you know, with their voices in the morning when they're having breakfast. And I know they had to have heard it. They didn't hear a thing. They didn't hear the crash at all. They had no idea what I was talking about. So I am flipping out internally in my head. And I say to them, I want to ask you, have you had any incidences from previous tenants of them telling you that they have had strange occurrences in this building? And they just looked at me so like I was crazy. And they said, no. I said, okay. So he says, well, thank you. You know, and so I went upstairs. So I hit the microwave, put the popcorn in. The microwave dies in the middle of the pop, right? I mean, it dies. It won't, I try to restart it. It won't start. I have to throw the popcorn out. And I thought, I didn't think much of it. I just thought, well, the microwave died. So I went to go put the tape in for the movie, and the tape starts becoming, it's eating, the machine's eating the tape, right? And I think to myself, you've got to be kidding me, right? This was crazy. And so I, you know, back then you used to rewind it with your fingers, you know, because if you had it damaged, you were charged $60 or $70 for a damaged tape back then if you returned it. So I rewound it and stuck it back in again, thinking, you know, maybe it just needs to try it one more time. Well, it did exactly the same thing. I stopped it and, you know, took it out, and I'm thinking, okay. So I think, well, I'm just going to read a book, right? Sit in the living room. I had, at that time, I used to collect jukeboxes, and I used to work on them and restore them. And so I had, you know, 3 of them. I had a few in storage, and I had one in my living room, actually. And it was a Wurlitzer from 1939. And I you know, I play 78s of 40s and 50s music. And so I turned it on, and I'm sitting there reading a book, and all of a sudden the sparks start coming out of this jukebox, and I actually saw a flame. And I jump off the sofa and I unplug it immediately, and I'm thinking, you've got to be kidding me. I kept thinking, now there's some sequence of something that's going on here at this point, because this is 3 appliances that are, you know, showing me something. I had a friend who lived in the neighborhood, and I went over to my phone to call him, and the phone was dead completely. There was no dial tone, no nothing, right?
No cell phones back then, y'all.
No cell phones back then. So I go downstairs again. Now this is later now, and I knock on the door again, and I asked if their phone went out because we're on the same wire, and their phone was working perfectly fine. And I said, well, my phone is dead. I don't know what happened here. And well, anyhow, that phone was dead for 2 weeks, and the phone company could not figure out why there was no connection. And all of a sudden, one day, it just started. Can you imagine being without a phone at home for 2 weeks? I was devastated since I was very social back then. But
you had to use your neighbor's line. You had
I
to find your
did.
friend's phone.
I did. I had to go over and so I met with my friend that night at a coffee house, and I was explaining to him what happened, and he is like, "You've got a spirit in this house." And I went back to work the following week, and one of my coworkers, Marcella is her name, she says, "I know this psychic medium in Canada, which is just over the Detroit River. You should go see her and see what's going on in your apartment." I said, okay. So I made an appointment with her, and I went over to Canada over the bridge, and her name was Nancy, and she was lovely. She welcomed me in and sat me down, and the first thing she said to me, she says, "You have a spirit in your apartment, and that's why you're here. And you're wondering why this is happening to you." And I said, "Yes, absolutely. That's why I'm here." I was so blown away that she knew right from the get-go. Right. So she says to me, the spirit that you have in your home tells me that your mother's family is associated with that house. Did they own it? She says, because there's some connection with your mom's family. And I says, no, my mom didn't own that house, and or my mom's family didn't own the home. And she says, well, I asked Spirit again, and the Spirit tells me that there is a connection with your mom's family associated with that home.
Right.
So, I was taking all this in, and I was like, well, I found this place in the paper, looking at 15 different apartments. It was a random thing. I know no history of this place. She says to me, the Spirit knows your family, and there's an association with that building and your mother's family, and you need to ask your parents, your mom and her family about this.
Right.
So I came home, and I did acquire, but to go on with the reading, Nancy explained to me, she says, the reason all these things are happening to you is because you're a medium, Anthony. And I said, I'm a medium. I said, what's a medium? And she says, what I do, she goes, I connect with the spirit world of people who used to live in the physical world. I said, oh, no way. I'm not a medium. She says, oh, no, you are. And I was in such denial at the time. I couldn't. I was like, there's no way. She says, oh, wait. She says, there's more. You're going to do this for work later on in your life. And she says, you've been chosen to do this for work. That's the difference. There's a difference of being interested in it, but there's a difference when they handpick you. And I said, there's no way I'm doing this, right? I mean, I just was at a different place, and I don't think I was mature enough at the time to work with mediumship and the responsibility that's involved with it. But she says to me, she says this, the Spirit passed away during the Depression. He was, I guess, some type of finance, investor, and he knew that there was going to be a depression and the stock market was going to crash. So he pulled all of his money out. And so apparently this man would walk down the street, and my grandmother, the Spirit was saying, my grandmother would wave to him, and they would converse from the porch to the street, and she got acquainted with him, and he knew my family. That's what she said to me.
Okay.
And you have to understand, like, this had to be really overwhelming for me at the time to like listen to all of this, because I had no knowledge of it.
You had quite some adventures before you even end up here at her. Looks
Right.
like you had like your own like Whoopi Goldberg or something.
It was that intense, to be honest with you. So anyhow, apparently she says the spirit says he was jumped during at the corner there of where I lived. And apparently they were trying to rob him, and they hit him on the head. And I don't know if he fell a certain way, but he hit his head on the concrete and he passed away. It wasn't intentional, but he did die there, right? And so I was writing all this down, correct? And I wanted to do my research. So I'm trying to think what else. And so she says, when you want to
out from your mom, like,
yes, I'm getting to that. So she says, you want to get rid of him because she goes, you are going to buy your own home and you're going to buy your own business. And Anthony, he's going to come with you. If you don't tell him, like you need to release him. He needs to not come. Like, so anytime you have a physical, issue, just tell him to move on and that, go towards the light but actually, I don't think he was really haunting me. He was just attracted to my energy. And I think that he was attracted to my family, right? And she says, he just loves your energy and being around you. You're so bubbly and, outgoing, and he just loves being around you. Anyway, so I go back to find out from my mom. I call her, and she says, well, I know we lived across from Dickerson Elementary School. I look across the street, and Dickerson Elementary School is across the street from me, right? And so I said, it can't be the same house. So she says, talk to your Aunt Molly, who's 4 years older than me, and she says she will speak to you about the history of, because we did live across from Dickerson Elementary School. So I call my Aunt Molly. She says we lived on Edwin Street. Well, I lived on Edwin Street. I says, do you remember the address? She says, no, but we were 4 houses from the corner. And I was 4 houses from the corner. So fast forward, my Aunt Molly comes over my place to take me out for breakfast with my sister. And they come in through the back entrance, of course, up to the apartment. And she had never been to my place. And I thought she slipped and fell because she kept saying, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God. And it almost sounded like it was a traumatic situation that happened. Right. So I open up the door and they're on the stairway. And I said, what's wrong? Did she fall? And my sister says to me, no, she seems to think this is the house that she was raised in.
Oh, wow.
So I said, you've got to be kidding me. My aunt came into my place and she said it was like a time warp, and she had tears coming down her face. Her face was soaked. I'm telling you, she said, because it was during the Depression, it was very emotional for people back then. It was a very hard time. And, there was seven siblings living in that upper apartment. Yes. And my grandmother and grandfather were divorced at the time, and which was unheard of at that time. So, but my grandmother knew that gentleman that was walking in front of the house, and apparently, he helped her financially. I mean, he gave her some money at times, and was very close to the family. And so I researched this at the library in Hamtramck, and sure enough, I found the newspaper article, and I don't have the man's name. I have it in one of my papers tucked away. But I did find the evidence that man did pass away in the mugging, because there just wasn't that many deaths at that time in the city. So that was quite an experience for me. And when I was, I heard the clap later on that day when I was in the apartment, when I got home from my reading. And I said to him out loud, I said, if it's you, give me a sign. And two pictures on opposite ends of the home fell to the floor. They fell off the wall and fell on the floor. And they didn't break, which I was really surprised. But if you can imagine, I saw them fall simultaneously at the same time. I think that was a pretty good sign.
Wow.
I know.
That's
It was
one heck of a story.
And there's more to it. There's a lot more. That's the fast
We're gonna
version.
have you back on. We're just gonna have you back on to talk about it.
Well, and the funny thing is, I remember having a housewarming party at my new home in Ferndale. I had left the apartment after 3.5 years. And, you fix up your place and then you have a housewarming party. And I had probably, I don't know, 15 or 20 people there. And we're in the back and we're having, festivities and food and drinks and stuff. And one of my friends was speaking and he was telling us about a story of something. And in the corner of the far room, that loud clap happened and it stopped him in his tracks, in his conversation. And everybody kind of looks and they said, what was that? And my friend Ann was there at the time and she says, he's back, like that. And I says, no, he's not. And so I go walking over to the corner where I heard the clapping. By this time I was already used to speaking to him, in private. And I automatically, it was just kind of like, I didn't even think about it. And I went over there and I said, listen, now you are not going to stay here. Thank you for coming to my party, but you must leave now. And, you're not coming back and blah, 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 blah. And I suddenly realized how quiet it was in the room. And I turned and everyone was just looking at me with their eyes this big and thinking that was the strangest thing they've ever seen. And I'll never forget it for the rest of my life. And so my friend Ann explained about the whole story with the spirit and everybody was interested in hearing about it. And we all laughed about it. But it was, that's what happened.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So, and I didn't see him after that. That was the last time.
One of his
or not
many
see him,
stories,
but hear from him.
everybody. That is just one of his many stories that we're, you guys are going to have to give this episode a 5-star review and let us know that you want Anthony to come back on and talk a little bit more. You want to play a little game? We have time just for a little game. I call it, are we going to book it? Or are we going to book it out of there? You want to play? So this is where we are going to, if I can find, there we go. So I am going to share my screen. So this is where we are going to look at one of my favorite Instagram pages called Cheap Old Houses. Have you ever seen this?
No, I haven't.
Okay. So let's take a look at the winner that I picked today. So it seems like, I don't even know where this is at, somewhere in Italy. It says, I'm speechless over these floors and ceilings. Look, listed for 75,000 pounds, 81,000 and some change American dollars.
Beautiful.
Large character house with amazing original floor tiles on the, I'm not going to even say that because I will butcher it. It looks like Molise region. The house is situated on historic center. Oh my God, all these Italian words that I'm just going to butcher. You guys are going to have to go to this listing. Okay. So we've got 2,800 square feet. The main entrance is situated on the ground floor where a characteristic stone arch portal leads into a characteristic alley. Here we find the main door of the house that opens directly into a large living room with beautiful, authentic cement tiles from the living room. 4 fabulous antique doors lead to 2 very, very wide. It doesn't say on here. Hold on. Well, oh, there you go. very large bedrooms. Both bedrooms are very bright thanks to the double exposure, and one of them rooms features original cement tiles with geometric pattern. The terrace enjoys a fantastic view across the hills of the looks like Magella Mountains. So let's take that looks like the servant stairs from Downton Abbey.
Yes. Or Arthur Findlay.
Yes. Oh my God. I mean, are we staying there, Anthony? Would you stay here with me for a minute?
Oh yeah, it's great. It's beautiful.
We could a really good like mediumship demo communication right there. That would be cool.
The mosaic tiles on the floor are just gorgeous.
Oh my God. Those would probably trip me out. Those look very much like who's the painter that does all those things where it's like the painting is coming at you?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's very three-dimensional, isn't it?
Yes, it's very trippy.
Oh, beautiful again. Wow.
Oh, wow. Yeah, I would stay here. I would stay here, y'all. This place definitely has some spirit energy to it.
It does. It has good energy, though.
It's got good energy.
It does. It has loving, really. It seems like there's a lot of, to me, a lot of gatherings there at this home.
Yeah, it seems like we've got playful energy. Look at that archway going in.
Yeah.
I want to see the whole, okay, that's a beautiful view. Okay, we're going to book it there. And meaning we're going to stay there. Okay, so I've got one more, okay? Okay, so I found this, and this is kind of in your area, Summerfield, North Carolina.
Okay.
Let's see. It looks like it used to be like an old bank or a butcher shop or something.
Mm-hmm.
Let's see. Oh, this is an old hardware store, it says. Many possibilities. The finely detailed Gordon hardware store was built in 1870s by a local carpenter builder, George J. Smith, who had also built the elaborate store on the other corner of Henry Clay, Britain. Noah Webster Oldburn, Britain's cousin, eventually opened up a general store, merchandise, and it goes on and on and on and on and on. Talk a lot about the history of it. And we are going to, we want to look at the fabulous photos of it. Okay, the outside looks all right. It definitely needs some shrubs and some
repair. Yep.
Definitely. I don't know, Anthony. I got dust allergies. I would investigate in here. Oh, wow.
It's kind of cool. I have remodeled a few homes in my life, and at this point of almost being 60, I don't think I could go through it again.
Yeah, I don't think I can do that. But I think I'm gonna have to pass on staying here. It looks very dead.
Yeah, the energy is it seems like it's had some hard times.
Yeah, it seems like this, you know what, this seems like a staircase that leads up to a living area or an office area.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Oh, what was that? I don't know. Oh, that's the backside.
That's the backside. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Well, I'm gonna book it out of there. I'm gonna pass. That place looks a little too much for my flavor, for my preference of things.
Yeah.
What do you think, Anthony?
It's too much of a restoration.
It's too much. We're not even gonna try to even stay there at all for any of it on there. Let me see on here. How do I do this? Show me what I'm talking to my Zoom, by the way, because I've got no idea. Sometimes I'm just clicking buttons to see what happens. trying to get it to come back to full. There we go. How about stop sharing? There we go. So you guys, if you like this episode, give us a 5-star review. If you have a ghost story of your own, get in contact with the podcast, let us know. You want Anthony to come back on and share more of his lovely stories, let us know as well. And if you need to get in contact with him, his information is in the episode's bio as well. And you can Google him at the Asheville Medium and he will pop up. You guys, you won't regret sitting down for 30 minutes or an hour with this man to have a lovely, lovely, insightful conversation, no matter if it's mediumship, intuitive work, or whatever it is that you're looking for, guys. Thank you once again for tuning in, guys, to the Haunted Road Trips show. Stay cool, stay calm, stay awesome out there, okay?
Thank you for tuning into the Haunted Road Trips show, where we share powerful conversations, insights, and exciting site investigations that reveal the paranormal world in a way you've never seen before, up until now. Remember to visit our website at www.hauntedroadtripsshow.com and enjoy even more great episodes like this one. Again, while you're here, subscribe to us via your favorite network. We look forward to seeing you next time on the Haunted Road Trips show. And remember, paranormal history is dying to be heard.